Hello, I'm Freddie.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Jordan. Wait, we should probably decide which direction we wanted to go. Who was going in what order?
Hello, I'm Freddie,
I'm Matthew.
I'm Ashley.
I'm Jordan.
and this is the Possible Spoilers podcast, where our combined powers of clairvoyance may or may not be enough to spoil the upcoming stories that you're looking forward to.
Absolutely. So today we are going to be discussing the upcoming story we will be talking about on today's podcast is the movie Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. How's it going to go?
Well,
go for it. Go for it.
I was going to say, I've heard so many conflicting things about it that it's kind of hard to guess where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard people, because the two most conflicting things I've heard are reviews that say that it's firmly planted in the Gotham canon or the Batman canon, DC universe, and I've heard things that say that it's completely disconnected. And I've seen evidence from the story itself that it's completely disconnected.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've seen a lot of conflicting things like you said. I think probably one of my favorite things about the press for this movie is that for every fan theory that shows up, typically somebody who worked on the movie just immediately slaps it down. It's like, no, not that thing. Not that thing you're thinking. So it's a weird combination of crazy fan theories and people who worked on the movie going, absolutely not.
I'm also
Basically, everything you're thinking of is probably not going to be true.
Yeah, that's true too.
Which is kind of the basis of this podcast. Jordan, we're all very sorry.
We're all going to be wrong.
Yeah, we're all just going to talk over Jordan.
Why am I even friends with you people?
This is the Talk Over Jordan podcast. Welcome to the Talk Over Jordan. Welcome to the Talk Over Jordan podcast, where our combined powers of rudeness may or may not be enough to drive Jordan out of our lives forever.
It's just my politeness has bounds, people.
Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
The whole thing about will it be connected to the DCEU is something I've been thinking about today as we've been talking about this, which is I don't even know if it will or won't, because kind of spoilers for Aquaman and Shazam, if nobody has seen those yet.
These are actual spoilers. This podcast is called Possible Spoilers. This is an actual spoiler from Jordan, just so everybody's aware.
They've been very coy about where exactly those movies fit into the DCEU. And we know Suicide Squad 2 is presumably still happening. So, I don't know. At this point, as a fan of the DCEU, I have no clue exactly what the continuity of that is anyways. So, I feel like they could just slot it in anywhere and just say it's canon at this point. So
I almost feel like, to that end, because like you said, they've been very coy, they've been very, almost like low-key. Yeah. I almost wonder if that might not be where DCEU shines, whereas MCU, literally everything is connected in some way. What if DC just makes way better just one-off movies? Maybe they don't need to connect everything and everybody is connected to everybody else and it always sets up another movie. I think potentially I see this as being a great way to DCEU show, for them to show, hey, look, we can just make really good movies regardless of whether or not it is in a 22-movie arc.
For the sake of clarity here, where by DCEU we mean DC Extended Universe, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. These films are kind of our Elseworlds tales.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Matt, because DC already excels at that. If you look at DC's animated stuff,
oh, absolutely,
they're already good at those one-offs. They don't always have to be chasing the Marvel gold mine. I would be perfectly fine with a bunch of tiny, self-contained, maybe a couple movies bleed over into each other, but they don't necessarily have to, which is why I think I'm okay with Joker kind of doing that in this movie. If it's not going to be connected to whatever Robert Pattinson Batman movie is coming out whenever, or Suicide Squad 2 or whatever, that's fine with me. Just make it a good movie at this point, and I'm there for that. I loved Aquaman, I loved Shazam, I want to love Joker, and I don't care if it makes sense with Ben Affleck or Henry Cavill, because apparently they're gone anyways, which is why I feel like the DCEU as an entity is just kind of strenuous at best. It's not clearly defined,
No, I absolutely agree with you, and I think that is one of the things that I said years ago that I think eventually one day the Marvel bubble will pop. As much as I love it, just for clarification, I am a huge Marvel nerd, love their movies, but I feel like that bubble will pop, and it'd be good if somebody was there to do something different to kind of fill that void.
Yeah.
And I feel like if DC would just, because like you said, the animated series, those are some of the best movies ever made. If they'd kind of lean into that, I think they have the potential to do something really cool.
Jumping off of that, even DC's like comic book stories, their continuity is really confusing.
Yeah,
because it's still
dubious.
Yeah, once you get into like the continuity going back literally since the inception of the characters, and when you start bringing in like Crisis on Infinite Earths and stuff like that, DC continuity is already like crazy. But DC really shines in those one-off stories, like Batman: The Long Halloween, or Red Sun or something. Those kind of seminal works that just sit in people's brains and spin for a while. So give me more one-shot movies or something.
I agree. So this is, as Freddie said, possible spoilers. That's what this podcast is about. So Freddie, if you don't mind, I know we're going to go back just a bit here, but talk just a little bit about how this got started and what the idea was, because this really came from you, honestly. So we sit here kind of setting up our feelings on this type of movie. Let's talk about what we're about to do next.
Well, actual spoilers for Captain Marvel. I kind of had the idea for this film for a couple, or this podcast for a couple reasons. One was that I was watching Captain Marvel on a plane, and as there's a particular character, and as soon as he was first on the screen, as soon as the first frame of his face, I said, he's the bad guy of this movie. And he was. And
yes.
So I had this idea, and then whenever that happens, people never believe me. They're always like, "Oh, sure you knew, sure you did." So I'm gonna try to prove it to people.
I love it.
That I do know where these things are going.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun! I know we watched an episode of Psych. It was me and Emily watching it. My sister. We watched it years ago, and I love that show. Again, this is one of those things, I'm not riffing on it, but it was like 3 minutes in. I paused it, looked at my sister, and said, "Okay, here's what's going to happen for the next 42 minutes." And I swear that exact same thing happened. But it always feels a little bit like a superpower. You look around the room, it's like, did no one see that? Like, surely no one witnessed what I just did.
That's one thing that I'm not very good at. Like, I was on that same plane watching Captain Marvel, and I did not guess that, not that quickly. I was thinking like Pacific Rim, and they were going to have this mentor student relationship, and he was going to die, and that was going to set off something. And so it'd be interesting, because I'm actually not as good at that. I think I just get sucked into the movie.
Yeah.
And just turn my brain off for a little while.
But therein lies the beauty of this podcast, because we have a variety of people in the way we look at these movies, and so absolutely we're going to think about it differently. And even so, again, possible spoilers. We all are going to come to this with different ideas of how we think this movie is going to play out. And so whether it's right, whether it's not, we don't know. We're just going to sit and talk about what we believe is going to happen. So, Freddie, this being your idea to a great degree, what is going to happen in Joker? How's it going to happen?
All right, I can start by telling you what I want to happen.
Yes.
And then I can move into what will actually happen. So here's what I want to happen. I want the Arthur Fleck. We've talked about how this movie is not disconnected, or this movie is disconnected from the other films. Mm-hmm. We've seen evidence that the Joker is running around doing his thing, and Thomas and Martha Wayne are around. So Bruce is either a child or not born. You would think, right?
Indeed.
But the movie can break those rules, because we've never seen a Joker into Arthur Fleck before. We know it's disconnected. They've told us it's disconnected. They're free to do whatever they want to do. So
absolutely.
My wish for this film is that he runs around, he does his thing, he gets steadily more evil, he gets steadily less relatable, and we stop rooting for him. Let's be honest, he's probably in the trailers. We got that scene where he walks out on the stage on the Murray Show with Robert De Niro. All those people are probably going to die, and he's going to do that in some way. And a scene that probably harkens back to The Dark Knight Returns, where he does a similar thing on a talk show. He breaks his mug and he cuts the host's throat with a broken handle of the mug, the ceramic handle. He's going to do all this. There's going to be no mention, no speak, no thoughts about Batman whatsoever. Batman essentially will not exist. In my dream version of this movie, about 20 minutes before the end of the movie, Batman swoops in for the first time. It's the first mention of him. Nobody's talked about him. And he proceeds to beat the snot out of Joker for 20 minutes. No cuts, no music, just the dull thud of...
For 20 minutes.
For 20 minutes, silent, no more lines. There are no background music, no cuts, just one solid 20-minute scene of him pounding the joke of Arthur Fleck's face. And then from there, the credits will roll.
I love it. No, I totally agree. This is my dream. Ever since you told me about this idea, it is my dream version of the movie as well. But I would hope that after 20 solid minutes of beating another man within an inch of his life, that Batman would still somehow find a way to hold a morally superior high ground and talk about not killing people. So we've just watched him beat someone for 20 minutes, but nevertheless, at least he didn't kill him, and he still somehow has more high ground.
Joker is still alive in the scenario. He somehow survives with barely a scratch. He's a little bit bruised, but it's like superhuman, beaten for 20 minutes, and he's still alive. Absolutely. And then the after credit scene is Batman still beating the Joker.
Credits roll. We wait in the theater for the after credit scene. Comes back. It's still no music, no cuts, just... And I hope the theaters are instructed to bring the lights down while this is still happening. So you leave to the rhythmic thud of Batman punching the Joker in the face.
I think it would be... All right, so again, one critique... not even a critique, one suggestion to that. Instead of an end credit sequence, make it a mid-credit sequence. So that all throughout, you just still hear that dull thud.
Oh yeah.
Credits,
no
and then it just keeps going.
No music.
No music over the credits.
No,
we just hear the beating.
Fists connecting with human flesh.
And it's perfect because nowadays credits go on for literal 15 or 20 minutes.
Oh, ages.
So, yeah.
And it would be apropos too, because the whole movie is about how Joker gets evil because he got beat up by society.
Yeah.
And this would be kind of like you said, Matt, the idea that Batman still somehow holds a moral high ground to these people, even though he's doing the exact same thing.
Exact same thing, just targeted in a different way.
Well, that would also be the perfect Batman movie, in my opinion, because Batman is functionally insane. Like, we just need to accept that and appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
Me and you have talked about this, Jordan, where the best Batman movie would be a Batman movie from the criminal's point of view.
Yes.
Because you would never see Batman.
That's true.
He's the horror movie monster.
The movie would end mid-sentence as whoever you were seeing the movie through the eyes of was knocked out. By a man he never saw.
Well, I was thinking about that after you and I talked about it at work one day, because there's a scene in Batman Begins where that's essentially what's happening. Where it's like the first time I think we actually see Batman being Batman, and he's just like running around, and we cut to I can't remember if it's Carmine Falcone in the car. It's one of the mobsters. And he's like freaking out because no one knows what's going on because it's the first time Batman's been on the hunt. So, yeah. But I
remember that. I think it is kind of shot where you don't really see him at all. You just see people getting knocked out, basically.
Yeah, none of the bad guys see him either, which just makes him all the more hilarious.
Yeah, and this is the scene where he's jumping across cargo containers.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
It's in a shipping container field or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but a Batman movie from the point of view of the criminal would indeed be a horror movie.
Yeah,
absolutely.
basically the Arkham games. Like, if anyone has played the Arkham games out there listening to this, you know what that's like. The Predator sections in the Arkham games, but it's a movie.
Can you imagine? That's the most horrifying thing I can think of.
The genesis of those games was that Batman he does stealth not from a point of weakness, but from a point of power.
Absolutely.
I remember a producer or a writer for the game saying that, and that was the kind of, because they said in most stealth games you attack from a point of weakness, but in Arkham games you attack from a point of power.
Interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, so now that you've ruined it, because I'm afraid no DC movie will ever live up to what you have made me wish for, Freddie Brendel. But let's go ahead and hear how you think it's gonna actually play out.
All right, so I told you, so that's what I would like to happen.
Absolutely, that's what we all like to happen.
What's actually going to happen, I guarantee, is that I started thinking about this because apparently the film is good. We know that, or we've heard that. At the Venice Film Festival, it got an 8-minute standing ovation.
Yeah.
So what would make a theater full of, let's be honest, normies do an 8-minute, standing ovation of this film about Joker? And what I think what's going to happen, and it's going to be the biggest cop out, is that Joker, or at least one of his minions that we see him in the trailer getting, he inspires gangs, right? Who all wear clown masks. They're going to be the ones to kill Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Mm.
Or Arthur Fleck himself. It'll be even worse if it's him himself, because it's supposed to be a nobody.
Yeah.
Like Joe Chill. Like Joe Chill is such a plain criminal name. It's supposed to be a nobody. That's going to happen. And then there's going to be some kind of the music is going to swell, and there's going to be a fast forwarded kind of montage of Bruce becoming Batman and some Joker, one of Joker's minions, one of Arthur Fleck's minions, becoming the Joker because he was inspired by him. So the Joker can still be a nameless nobody. And I think that swelling music montage of this fast forwarded scene of Bruce growing up and changing and donning the mask for the first time would be exactly what would make a theater stand up and applaud for 8 minutes.
Oh, wow.
If they hadn't seen this kind of thing over and over and over and over again.
True.
I like that.
People who are into this stuff have.
Yeah. And I like that because it doesn't dwell on the origin story. There's an origin story there, but Batman has a pretty simple origin story, all things considered. It's not crazy or anything.
Yeah, I think I definitely think you're onto something, because now that we talked before, it can be its own thing. But there is one connection that no one has disputed, and it's just kind of hanging in the air. And some eagle-eyed viewer of the trailer found out that on the theater marquee at one of the theaters in the movie is the name of the movie that was in Batman vs. Superman when they had that flashback scene to the Wayne parents being killed. And so they're thinking, okay, that might actually be the connection. This might actually be the timeline of when it happens. So again, I'm with you. I don't necessarily think Joker will do it. I think it will be, just some random thug that maybe even Joker inspired. But I really think you're onto something, because that is the only true connection to the rest of the film universe that has not been shot down, hasn't really even been addressed. So the silence kind of makes me think that, it's kind of the tell that this might actually be it.
Well, I got to tell you, though, that if they do go this way, then it better be a random thug and not Arthur Fleck.
Absolutely.
But what is the name of the film?
I can't remember. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I think it's The Gray Ghost or something like that, isn't it?
So this film, so they say the film's not in canon with Robert Pattinson's, but I guess what you're saying is they haven't shot down the fact that it might be in canon with Batman v Superman?
Yes. Potentially. Again, they haven't shot that one down, is what I've heard.
So the random thug that Arthur Fleck could inspire to be the Joker is Jared Leto's Joker?
Oh, I don't like that. No, why'd you... Don't do that. Gosh.
We have one rule here. We don't
all
talk
having
about
a good
Jared Leto.
time. We were all having a good time. Okay, let's see. Okay, Excalibur is the name of the film.
Excalibur.
So the first Joker teaser sprinkled breadcrumb hints of Arthur Fleck interacting with both Thomas and Bruce Wayne. Various points in the film. da da da. But that's the name of the film is Excalibur, and apparently they saw that both in the BVS movie and the trailer. So
Also, it's not the Gray Ghost. That's from Batman the Animated Series. I just looked that up.
Yes.
So yeah.
A few different canons here.
Yeah, there's too much.
But so, Freddie, I really think you might be onto something there that might be supported. Now, one thing, I want to throw out my idea, because it is not a true idea of how the film's going to go. I'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's put it in conversation with what you're thinking, Freddie. There is a girl that keeps popping up in the trailer that he talks to. And in the second trailer, he even brings her close and kisses her, and they're meeting at this diner. And so she's obviously important. But there has been zero reference to who she is. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to throw out an idea. I think it's Barbara Gordon. Personally.
That would be really... This movie's timeline already seems odd. That would be an interesting divergence, though.
Wouldn't?
Yeah, to pull in someone who's canonically younger than Bruce before Bruce has hit puberty.
Oh, sure. But, if we can throw all of this off anyway, because, help me out here, I don't think the Gordons really existed in BVS or Suicide Squad or anything like that, right?
I've seen
Jim Gordon was in...
I've seen
that's right.
He's in Justice League.
That's right. Dang it.
So we know roughly how old Jim Gordon is. So
yeah, true.
At most, Jim Gordon might be, 20 or 30 maybe when this movie takes place?
Yeah, that's true. Dang it. But
Although maybe it could be someone related to the Gordons. That's possible.
Potentially. But I like this idea of somehow that would almost be the thing that was the straw that broke the camel's back for Arthur Fleck. That somehow he wasn't the one. So, all right, killing joke, spoilers here. That Joker wasn't the one who caused it, but somehow someone else caused this to Barbara. So it sets her on a path of being Oracle, and it sets Arthur on a path of being like, okay, this is it. Now it's time to kill everyone because you ruined the only good thing I had going. So again, it would be a total subversion of that story and that relationship, but I couldn't help but wonder, what if it was? Because again, they're obviously setting up this girl to be important, but we have no idea who she is. I haven't even seen any theories floating around.
Well, okay, so it just hit me right now. Keep in mind, this movie is apparently told from the perspective of Joker. So who really cares what's happening? Because we know that if this movie is going to show us an actual Joker, Joker's insane. So he's the definition of an unreliable narrator. So it could be just anybody.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It could be anybody and everybody.
If Arthur Fleck is a name we've never heard before, then it could be anyone he's romantically interested in or connected to. Might be someone we've never heard of before.
I love it. So now you're actually going to segue into what I actually think this movie is. And I think that it is a Batman fanfic. And I think some nerd is sitting in Comic-Con pitching this to Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. And none of it's real. That's how I think it ends.
Oh. Wow.
That would get an 8-minute standing ovation.
Just Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy with their mouth.
I don't know. I feel like that would make me unreasonably angry.
Or they
just none of it was real.
Yeah.
It was all a dream.
Yeah. We're all going the General Hospital route.
He's in Arkham Asylum the whole time. Now, I'm scared to death of that one. I'll be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Because, all right, so we're gonna really harp on some people here for just a minute. Because, like Freddie said, it's a bunch of normies who gave it an 8-minute standing ovation. Wouldn't that just be a technique that might, oh my gosh, it was a dream the whole time. He was always in Arkham.
Or they could pull an Amadeus, and it could be that he's telling the whole story to somebody in Arkham.
Well,
oh no, Freddie, you stole my idea.
Go for it, Jordan. Go for it, Jordan.
No, we gotta talk over you.
This is the possibly ruining my friendship with Jordan podcast. Once again.
Oh man. I don't want to steal Matt's thunder though. Were you done with all of your stuff?
Well, no, I was just going to say, kind of going back to what you said about the unreliable narrator, because then, at the very end, I could see that, because then you look back on this movie and go, what part of it was real? He's obviously in Arkham for a reason. You don't just go here for nothing. So something was real, but was it all of it? Was it some of it? So, yeah, that's all I was going to say, just kind of finish up, kind of even going off what you were saying, Jordan, that the unreliable narrator, obviously I think that's going to be a big part of it, but to what extent? But go ahead. What's your idea? I want to hear it.
So, to piggyback off of that, I think that this movie is going to be filtered through the eyes of madness. So, like, the events in the movie are happening, but the fact that we are sympathizing with the Joker during it, I think, is because it's through Joker's standpoint, and of course, Joker thinks he's in the right. My possible theory, my crazy theory about how this movie might end. Okay, so I have two crazy theories, and they kind of both go with each other. And I went with the idea that they are trying to make this movie canon in the DCEU in some form or fashion. So my first crazy theory is that this movie's going to end with another Joker taking up Arthur's place. And they've kind of toyed with that idea of there have been multiple Jokers throughout history in the comics. I think there were as many as 3 possibly running around at one time. So my thought is that Arthur Fleck is going to be inspiration for another Joker down the line, kind of like Jared Leto's Joker. Which may end up being an explanation as to why those characters are so different in the DCEU canon.
Jordan, I have to tell you, I kind of like that idea because I abhorred Jared Leto's Joker.
Oh, God, yes, 100%.
But it would almost retroactively lend credence to his performance if you realize he was literally trying to copy some other man who was actually crazy. So it's almost like Kylo Ren to Darth Vader. This man who just wants to dress up and play like it. It would retroactively lend credence to Leto's performance of this man was just trying to copy somebody else.
See, the only reason why I don't like that theory is that it's kind of retroactively fixing something that was bad.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because, like, Suicide Squad Joker looks really good when he's not in that scene in the bar with all the tattoos and stuff. When he's in the suit dancing around with Harley Quinn, he looks fantastic.
Sure.
But everything else about that Joker sucks. Like, really bad.
Yeah.
My other crazy theory, and it kind of goes hand in hand with that, is that the movie ends somewhere in the present day-ish. And this Joker, Arthur Fleck, in this movie, is going to be hunting down and killing the Suicide Squad Joker for, like, taking his place or something.
He's like, no, this is mine.
Yeah, that he got too big for his britches. Like, maybe while Joker was in Arkham Asylum, Jared Leto kind of, like, took over the business for a while. So yeah, I think that one's kind of crazier because I don't think Jared Leto would sign on for that. That might just be what I want. It feels
like a Deadpool timeline type thing. It's what it feels like.
Yeah.
He shows up later, it's like, no, this is mine, and just shoots him in the face, and he hunts them all down, and then that movie ceases to exist.
That would get a standing ovation from me. You don't have to deal with Jared Leto.
Maybe we're wrong. Maybe it's not normal. Maybe it's a bunch of geeks who feel justified now. Like, yes, finally.
That could get an 8-minute standing ovation.
Yeah.
I would clap for much longer than 8 minutes, but.
And what was your second crazy idea? Or was that your second crazy idea, Jordan?
I have 3 crazy ideas. Like, you guys had an idea of how this movie will end. I just have crazy ideas. My craziest idea of how this movie ends is that the entire movie, I know you said you didn't like this, Matt, but the entire movie is Joker monologuing from within Arkham Asylum. But the person he's talking to is Harleen Quinzel before he breaks her spirit to become Harley Quinn. And this is the start of her origin story. So we see her as the psychologist, like listening to Joker in this sympathetic tone, like telling her how great and awesome he is. And then we kind of start this like snowball effect of her kind of slowly transforming into the crazy Harley Quinn that we all know and love.
Okay. Oh, no, here's an idea. Ooh. Okay, to go back to what I was saying. What if... I'm going to change my answer. What if that girl is not... What if that girl's not Barbara Gordon, but maybe some version of Harleen Quinn?
That is interesting.
She's in psychology school, and then she meets up, like, he just falls apart, and then she still tries to maintain a relationship with him, and that's when it all happens.
Well, he's also got that thing with the social worker, too, so maybe that could be where they meet.
True.
And I think there's a scene of them kissing in the trailer.
Yeah, exactly.
That seems very telling.
Indeed.
Yeah, I would say that would be a kind of a better reason for Harley Quinn to go insane is that she was actually in a relationship with the Joker before she's a psychologist, rather than he's her client and it's like, oh my god, I just can't handle what he's telling me.
Ooh, very
Like,
true.
I never really liked that part of Harley Quinn's story.
It's the worst psychologist in the world.
Yeah.
Harley Quinn's kind of a
She
problematic
just
character.
breaks very easily.
Yeah.
All it took was one crazy man in Gotham, by the way. Like, she hasn't run into this before, but somehow Joker is the one that just makes her snap.
Yeah, like, oh my god, this is the worst thing I've ever heard, or the craziest thing I've ever heard. It's just, I don't
Is
know.
it though?
Yeah, I'm sure actual psychiatrists / counselors hear probably worse than some comic book writer can come up with every day.
I would hope so. Otherwise, we have some scary comic book writers.
The one thing that I know we've talked a lot of like bad stuff about Suicide Squad. The one thing that I did like in that movie is it does show that Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn like was tortured to become Harley Quinn. It wasn't just that.
Right.
It wasn't just that Joker like sweet talked her or something.
Absolutely.
Like there's a scene there where he's like giving her electroshock therapy.
Yeah,
And
true.
that was really well done. But yeah, so
Very true.
that's all I got. My crazy ideas are out for the world to see now.
Fantastic. All right, up at bat now is Ashley. What do you got? How's Joker gonna end?
Well, how I would want it to end is, or I don't know if it's technically how it's end, but just how it's gonna go is it's like that it feels very much not like a superhero movie. Like the Joker doesn't really get into super villainy, which from the trailer seems to kind of go along with that, especially since it's showing a lot of stuff like before he's the Joker. But basically, it's just gonna feel like some crazy dude is just going crazier, and maybe at the very end, he actually does something that's like considered like super villainy, like killing a bunch of people or something. But for the most part, like there's no mention of anything like that. It just feels like an entirely different movie.
That's interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, we never actually see the Joker inflict any violence on anyone in the trailers, do we?
I don't think so. Like he's
No.
kicking something. I'm not sure if it's a person or just a thing. I would have to go back and watch it.
No, I don't think we see it. There is a reference, and we don't know who it is, but someone in there says like, how could a human being do something so cold-blooded, or something to that effect. So it's kind of implied, but again, we don't really know for sure that it's him. We don't know if it's actually Arthur Fleck himself that did it. So again, it's implied, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we see a little bit of stuff inflicted on him. Not a whole lot, but we don't really see him.
We see him injuring himself, but that's it. That's all I wanted to add there. But we don't see him like hurting people that I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Freddie.
Oh, no, that's fine. I've done it to you enough. I was just going to say that if we're... one thing we haven't talked about much is that we're a little late to the party on this Joker thing for our podcast.
Yeah.
Because I have read reviews of people who have seen the movie, but they're insiders and influencers, not like us. Yet.
That's why we're here.
It was just after your 20-minute beating idea. It's like we still have to talk about this.
Yeah.
We can't let this go.
Why did we let Freddie go first?
That should have been the way we ended, and then we just shut it down. Kind of like Batman.
But people have already seen the film, and I've read reviews, and I did see a review reference to him reveling in his first kill, is how they put it.
Okay.
So that only implies that he does kill, but there is more. But it is kind of like, I can't imagine there being much super villainy in this movie. Like Ashley said, I can imagine, more like street level crimes.
Yeah, like he's not putting like explosive jack-in-the-boxes and like, like
I wish he would.
I'm starting to say
maybe at the very end it just goes like balls to the wall, super like superhero movie where he's just going like, it just gets really silly. It just turns into like Batman and Robin or
just off the wall.
Just
completely crazy.
Really stupid.
Maybe this movie ends the exact same way as the Tim Burton Batman movie with the farting parade balloons. You know what I'm talking about?
Vaguely. It's
I
been
haven't seen those
years.
movies in so
It's
long.
been years.
His
But
big.
I think the last I saw the Joe Schumacher. It wasn't Batman and Robin. It was the one before that with Two-Face. I saw that one kind of recently, like a couple years ago, and it just turns into that insanity, that level of insanity.
But yeah, so those are the big ideas. But I guess we'll find out. It's coming out really soon. In fact, I hope we can get this podcast out before that hits.
That I think would be the best.
We will try our best to make that happen.
But we make no promises.
People can listen to this posthumously and like, oh my god, how did they get so close?
Everything they talked about was in there.
Yeah, every single thing, even though it doesn't even go together.
This Skype call has like set off all kinds of flags, and Warner Brothers is going, "What the heck?"
They sent multiple versions of the film out to different theaters. Every theater has a different ending, and they're all ones we talked about.
I love it. All right, so this has been Possible Spoilers. Thank you for joining us as we nerded out, talked about this topic. We hope you will join us again next time, as we may or may not spoil all kinds of stories that are coming up. So thank you for joining us, and we may or may not have spoiled Joker.